Nice demo. Nice. Oh no! Unfortunate. Nice turn, but again, you're not using your boost. You have to be careful here, bro. When you turn towards your net, when you take a wider approach like this, and you turn towards your net, you see, you're already kind of shadowing the play automatically. You see your opponent's Ooga Booga coming for you right here. You can just hit it, clear it midfield, and attack again. Hello, my name is Idris. I am currently the RLCS coach for Unity Esports. I have around 3 years of experience and I have coached more than 400 individual players. So before we start today's analysis, I got a couple questions for you. So what is your current rank?
Diamond 3 and 1s and 3s and Champ 2 and 2s.
In your opinion, what do you think your main weaknesses are?
Probably getting control over the ball.
Close to yourself, making plays off the ball, etc.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe challenging too.
Just the timing of when to go, when not to go, when to mix it up.
Yeah.
What is your play style?
Right now, I just play without thinking, and maybe I'll focus on like one thing to improve on throughout the entire time I'm playing the game. That's pretty much all.
So you're trying to become less of a reaction type of person and more like enforcer. So you try to get some information before you, I guess, make a decision.
Yeah, for sure.
So final question, what rank are you trying to achieve?
GC realistically.
What?
Like I feel like in the next 2 months, GC realistically.
Is that in 1v1s?
No, not
Come on, have some self-confidence.
Possible. But
All right, sounds good. Let's get right into it. All right, so good clean kickoff to begin with. So even before I get into what we have to focus on is how and why you win this kickoff, right? AKA kickoff theory. So this is something I discovered the longer and longer I've been coaching. Some people say you have to be the first to touch the ball. Some people say you have to try to hit the ball as fast as possible. So here we're gonna slow it down a little bit so we can see both perspectives from a different angle. So as you can see here, both you're approaching the ball, and one thing you have to be extremely careful about is when you use your first jump. All right, so you see you see this little bubble here, you've already used your first jump, while here your opponent Fishy is still grounded. So now what is the difference here? Why should you try to delay your first jump a little bit? Because if you're grounded, you have all 4 wheels on the ground, right? And you're also boosting, so you have 2 factors, your wheels and your boost, that's pushing you forward. If you jump, you're gonna be a little bit off the ground, so you can technically say you're mid-air, which means the only factor that pushing you forward is your boost. So you don't have the advantage of making the 4 wheels work for you. So generally speaking, I would say try to delay your first jump, not by too much, but the majority of the maps have the circular range. Not all maps, but the majority of the competitive maps have a little circle around them. Try to make sure you're using it within the first border, I guess, because you can see there are actually many. There's one, this is the first layer, right? And then there's a second layer here, if you notice, of a circle. Yeah. And then this is the third one. So you make sure you're using your first jump around the outer layer, and then your second jump anywhere in between here. So you try to jump, I guess, as late as possible. Why? Because you can build up and maintain as much speed as possible. However, as we just saw that you did win this kickoff, so now there are a few other factors that we need to consider in this situation. So you do jump early and the opponent jumps later, so they're jumping in the border, as I mentioned earlier. But another important factor, right, is the angle of approach. So do you touch the ball first? In kickoffs, if you touch the ball first, you have a higher probability of losing, because if you hit the ball first, you hit it into him and he deflects it off of you. So that's why you have to be careful when you're trying to win the kickoff. That's why some players come to me and like, I beat my opponents. My opponents are so slow to the ball. Why do I still lose the kickoff? This is the concept behind it. Because you're actually faster. Yes, you're actually super speedy, but you hit the ball into them, and all they do is absorb that power and deflect it. So here, another huge, the most important factor other than the timing of the jump is the angle of approach. You can very clearly see here who's much straighter to the ball, right? You are literally as straight as possible in this situation, while your opponent is a little bit more sideways. So even though his timing was much better than yours, it's just that the angle is much more important. Force in the center of the ball while your opponent is hitting it from the side. So where is it gonna pop out anyway in this general direction? Obviously going in your favor, depending on where if your opponent's side flips to the left, is gonna be in a worse situation. If your opponent's side flips to the right, he's gonna be in a less of a bad situation. He's still gonna probably lose the kickoff. Obviously side flipping to the right will put him closer to the ball. That's why in this specific kickoff, in this specific situation, you were able to pop it towards the opponent's half. So this is kickoff theory. This is how with your jump timings, I guess you could say, and the angle of approach, you have a higher control of your kickoffs, because a lot of people go for kickoffs and they just don't know how to get it. This is a good pressure. One thing you have to be careful about here is this is a good pressure. You check your camera before you turn. This is fine. Even I usually say to stay grounded is better, but your opponent went for their corner boost, so you have a little bit of time to work with. One thing is, if you're gonna fake, right? If you don't have any intention of going for the ball, try to turn sooner than later. You might think that the later you turn, the more you will kind of sell the fake, but sometimes it's not important, because sometimes you fake too closely, you turn too lately, and they just move the ball anyways. So it's like as if you challenged the ball, but you didn't challenge the ball. You were just your car was in that position. So two things to keep in mind is if you're gonna fake, turn earlier, especially since you're pushed up so much here. Turn earlier, so here you should have turned. And second of all is be wary how you turn, right? Because you see here how you turn, and if you look at the opponent's perspective, you actually turn away from the ball. So it's like you're inviting them to shoot towards your net. So there's a big difference. You see how here you turn away, so now there's a gap in your defense. If they instantly shoot this ball, they have a higher chance of scoring on you. Right? They end up shooting, but they're a little bit late. We always make sure that when we're approaching the ball, we're approaching in such a way. For example, here you already made the decision that you want to fake challenge. You try to approach from such an angle to where you can turn towards your net very easily. So rather than approaching super sharply, so what do I mean by super sharply is when you're approaching the ball from the side and not from the front. You're kind of forced to turn like this. It feels natural. So how do we sell our fake more, and how do we make it easier for ourselves? Is we try to get a wider angle or wider approach. Now if you do this, right, you have many more options. You could still fake and turn left, but this would be incorrect because you would be turning away from your net. Now you have the option of not only challenging this ball head on if you wanted to, even though it's not within the situation, since it's still super early in the game. You can easily turn towards your net, as you can see. When you turn towards your net, when you take a wider approach like this and you turn towards your net, you see you're already kind of shadowing the play automatically if the opponent decides to challenge the ball, shoot the ball. One thing you have to be careful about is when you jump, you make sure you're staying behind the ball. You see how here you jump and you're not behind it, you're kind of beside it, because here what you're doing is you're kind of hitting the ball lightly towards him and he's hitting it back to you. You see how when you jump here, you pop it a little bit to him, you hit it a little bit closer to him, and then hits it back to you. So this way you're not really controlling your 50. It's just anything can happen. You have less control. You have to be careful here because you're mirroring your opponent on the backboard. So there we go. So what do I mean by mirroring is you're trying to line your car with his car. So here it's extremely risky. Why? Because if he hits it far side or far post, it's almost impossible for you to save. So what should we do in this position? You already have 60 boost here. There is no reason in the first place for you to push for that corner boost, right? You could just go back post and let him shoot. This is option number one. You realistically only need like 20 to 30 boost to save almost any ball, right? In this specific situation. Option number two is as the opponent is headed, you can try to pre-jump and stop them. So rather than you trying to match, you make sure that you're boosting towards your back post, let them shoot, and then obviously it will be much more easier to save any ball that's spinning, because it will, again, not the ideal situation like the back post, because if they're shooting the ball, boom, your back post, you're facing the play. However, it's still much better than trying to stay in the backboard. If you want to stay in the backboard, if you feel like it's the correct decision, then I don't mind it, as long as you boost and you're trying to make sure that you're closer to your front post, because if they end up hitting it low or they end up hitting it around. And here your challenge was your timing of the challenge was really good. Your only mistake was you accidentally flipped a little bit and you hit it into him. Nice speed there. Just be be extremely careful is how you flip here. So I recommend anytime you flip towards your defense, I would have liked flip here, at least a front flip or a diagonal flip towards your front post, because you see here you're actually going away from your goal here. But you see now how far you are. If you did a front flip, you would have been here. So if they ended up shooting, you can easily save. But now since you're much closer to the ball, obviously it's difficult to get here. before they're able to get that touch. One other thing you have to be extremely careful about is jumping. Anything that forces you to commit to a certain specific situation or direction too early. You see, anything can happen here. He can pinch the ball, he can hit it to the left, he can hit it to the right. He could definitely miss the ball. So try to never jump or never flip before something happens. Just observe, see what happens, and then react accordingly. Very good recovery. He ends up missing as well. Nice, you're taking your time. Good thing you didn't go for an aerial play there. Nice flick. So well done there. A lot of players here usually have the issue of if they don't see a player, they usually don't flick it. So you should, regardless of the situation, you should flick it because you cannot see them. And if they end up challenging you and beating you, you're going to be in a much worse situation. You know golf, how when they put the ball on like a stick, before they swing it, it will literally be like that. There will be no difference. So it's less riskier to flick it right here. And even if you get flicked, it's fine. Even if you miss, it's fine. So here you're close to the halfway line, so it's not as risky. Like you flicking it here is much better, for example, than you flicking it here. So you see here how you flip into the ball and then you wait for it to land. Yeah. You could have done the same thing if you didn't flip. You could have just drove straight, hit the ball lightly, let the ball start rolling, get the boost, and then attack immediately. So here you kind of slow yourself down just by a tiny bit, just by a second or two. Nice hit. This is fine. Let's see what the opponent will do. Will they panic? Again, very well done. And there we go. The biggest difference maker in that situation was the person who flips first always loses. I would say the majority of the time. So yeah, aerial plays are very risky. It's do or die. It's whether you score them or if you miss, you have a high chance of getting scored on. So usually I would not recommend it, especially in this situation. Why? Because the opponent is not pressuring you. How do you know the opponent is not pressuring you? Is by looking at their car. Is their car facing the ball? Exactly. So since they're not facing the ball, then you don't need to worry. And that is what 1v1s are, right? One opponent waits for the other to overcommit and immediate punishment. It's fine. Nice patience. I don't mind this boom whatsoever. You're putting pressure on the opponent. And one huge misconception is a lot of players think every time I shoot, I have to score. That is not true. In ones, every time you shoot, you have to break down the defense. So here, you shooting this ball, right, and forcing a save out of him is totally fine, is what you should do. You're forcing him to use boost, you're starving him, and you're making him give you the ball for free. Nice challenge. This challenge, I would usually say, is very risky for you to go for. Like your opponent here, you have to be extremely careful not to overcommit, aka flipping. And this is what they exactly do. So now, not only did they flip and mess up and overcommit, they also have zero boost, which gives you a very open net. You put a decent amount of pressure, not the hook shot you wanted, but you still force a touch out of him, you starve him. Good thing you didn't go for that ball. You could have definitely scored, I was very close. Now you have to back away. So now, remember what I said regarding information collection? You boost starve him, but now you're both probably low on boost. You starve him out of the boost and you have zero boost. So what other than the boost factor that is against you, what do you think that component is?
I think I was just like facing away the ball completely.
What you're saying is not wrong, but it's not it's not that critical because you're kind of shadowing the ball in this position. The biggest thing is both of you are low on momentum, both of you are low on boost. However, right, two things you have to worry about is when you turn, you decrease your speed even more, right? Guess what here? If you mess up, how long is it gonna take you to get back? A long time, right? Yeah. If he messes up, how long will it take for him to get back? Nothing. He's already back. He's already at his net, right? So that's the biggest difference. Is sometimes when you're on equal footing in terms of boost, speed, momentum, positioning, what you have to look on other factors. Okay, if I go for this, if I lose, how long will it take for me to recover? There we go. So try to always place yourself in positions to where you can challenge with low risk. I don't mind this patience, it's fine. There we go. Because like I said, 1v1 is all about waiting for one player to overcome it and then punishing them. So remember, we went through an example here earlier. So here, again, you're making it more difficult for yourself by flipping because you end up hitting it up and then you're like, you don't want to go for an aerial. If you wanted to go for an aerial play, this is totally justifiable, what you did here. But if you have no reason or if you have no intention for going up the wall, then you shouldn't even think about flipping and hitting this ball with power because you end up here not only giving away your pressure, you had a lot of pressure on the opponent, so you have to be careful. There we go. So this is what I mean. Remember when I said when you're ball side, your far post is a vulnerability. As soon as you take the boost, you can't mirror. You see here, you're subconsciously mirroring with the player, because every player has this ingrained into them from 2s and 3s. You can't treat 1s in a similar fashion. So as soon as you take the boost, you have to rush towards your back post, and then you can wait and see. If they're hitting it far post, you jump and you save. If they're hitting it close post, then you react accordingly. You see how there's a huge opening? From your angle, maybe it didn't look as big as this, the gap, but look at how much distance there is between you and your back post. So that's the risk of rotating ball side, aka going the same side as the ball here. So here, I recommend stay on ball cam. Don't flip, don't do anything. Stay on ball cam, stay on ball cam, stay on ball cam. You see him roll it up the wall? As soon as you see him roll it up the wall, you can go and get the 100 boost, it's fine. Because as you know, when players are going for aerials, you have to lift the ball from the ground into the air, right? Whether that's up the wall or whether you're trying to pop it up yourself. This takes more time for the opponent to set up, which means it gives you more time to get boost and get into correct position. So this is why also aerials are not the most favorable thing in 1v1 for the average rank. The only issue is the angle you flipped here. So here, if you front flipped, you could have been able to win or to been able to 58, but here you side flipped, you're barely able to touch that ball. Okay, one other point here, you see how you take the boost? You turn aggressively and then you take a wide turn. So what ends up happening is you actually take longer to... So you know how you could have avoided this while maintaining a lot of speed and a lot of momentum? You still drive to the boost, right? However, rather than turning upfield, because this is a little bit risky if the opponent decides to boom it, or if they have good control, you take the boost and you turn towards your net, right? And then you directly approach the ball. So you slow down in each of these points by just a tiny bit, very, very tiny bit, like we're talking about like 5% each time, obviously depending on how sharply you turn. Nice demo, nice. Oh no, unfortunate. So here, one thing you have to be careful, right? Your angle of approach, you fix it, which is good. One thing you have to be careful in 1v1, in 2v2 this would have been fine because the ball would have gone to your teammate. In 2v2 and 3v3, in 1v1, anytime you're in front of the opponent like this, when you're challenging, it's better to single jump because you can't risk the ball going above you. So this goes back to the example I made earlier. So here, if the opponent messes up this 50-50, how long will it take for them to get back? They're gonna get back immediately. So here, the best option is to single jump because you eliminate the risk of it pinching around you, and you also eliminate the biggest risk of it going above you. When you stay still like this, you're not really going for a low 50 unless the opponent jumps super high. You kind of become like a pillar to where the opponent hits it off of you, get a pinch, you see? So one touch from the opponent and then into you and then back into the opponent. So this is the biggest risk you have to be careful about in ones. This is a special thing. Here I wouldn't recommend going for that ball because if you miss, there we go. And again, you know, the opponent could have actually scored there, but he thinks he's the superhero. He goes up the wall. Here, if he took his time here, touch the ball lightly, drive around the ball, and then as the ball is rolling up, they hook it into your net because you're still far. And you also double jump, so your momentum is very low. So even worst case scenario, the opponent doesn't score, at least the opponent forces you to use all your boost just to get back, just to save the ball. But they needlessly go up the wall here. They give you a chance to get back. So here it comes back to same point I made before. Nice turn, but again, you're not using your boost. You have to be careful here, bro. So this turn is very good. Why are you feathering your boost? Use your boost here. It's fine. Use your boost. Use your boost. Here you do well. You end up challenging him just in time. You can shoot this ball. Okay. So here the angle is already tough. So what do I recommend? Rather than trying to shoot it immediately, what you can do is drive into it straight. You either score. If you miss, no problem. You can easily read the bounce and then you can flip and shoot. And there we go. And this is unfortunately because you flipped and you overcommitted in your opponent's half. They have a wide open net now to shoot. So you have to be extremely careful in flipping, especially in ones. You have to be careful now, okay? Because this is like the 5th time we've gone ball side. He messes up his setup this time. You have to be careful. Yes, nice beat. So here you made it difficult on yourself by just the way you touched it. You see your opponent Ooga Booga coming for you right here. You can just hit it, clear it midfield, and attack again. You can roll it around to the midfield and attack again. You don't have to attack very sharply like this. This is fine. Good patience there. You have to be careful in the corner. Nice fake. Again, be careful when you're ball side. You have to be careful of demo. Nice hit there. Here, the most common play players do here is either hit it high and then demo low, or opposite. hit it low, come from you from a higher angle, so you have to be careful. Nice read on the ball there. Again, I don't mind this because you don't see the opponent. So what I recommend is just before you make the decision to go for this, use your joystick to move your camera to see is he really going or not before you make this decision. No, the opponent is killing time now. He's just trying to buy time. Yeah, you have no time. I don't disagree with this rush challenge whatsoever. Nice idea. Also got a really good touch. He almost also on goals for you. And again, you see you're flipping and you're putting yourself in bad situations. And there we go, that is game. GG's. It was definitely closer. I would say mechanically he was definitely not superior to you. It's just that you made more risky decisions than your opponent did in that specific situations. He didn't outplay you mechanically. He didn't outplay you. It's just he waited for you to overcome it and then punished you. Because he scored a few goals via air dribbles because you were ball side. He scored a few goals because you flipped and you overcome it and he had an open shot. So you have to be extremely careful in how you approach the ball and understand what is risky, what is not risky. Obviously, it's going to take time to undo bad habits and replace them with good habits, and to think in certain situations, how to think differently. And this is what makes Rocket League so rewarding, because there are so many different things that can happen, so many different situations. The higher the level you go, the more complicated, the more complex these situations and these things become. Let's say hypothetically you lost a game 6-4, but you went for 4 flicks and or you went for 5 flicks and you scored 4 of them. Did you improve your flicks? Yes. Did you lose? Unfortunately, yes. But what you're trying to focus on is long-term improvement. So focus on 1 point at a time. Even if you lose in terms of score, it was a pleasure being here. Hopefully the viewers, as they were watching, I was able to show not only you but also them a different side of Rocket League, because I don't think, typically speaking, there are videos like this one out there. Just maybe a few, maybe like flakes here and there, but I don't think it goes down as in depth as we did here.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, bro, thank you for your time and best of luck with getting right. I better see you GC1.
Yeah, it's gonna happen for sure. It's definitely gonna happen.
Yes, sir.